Let's get back home to Nigeria's Statistics Bureau Office, which today released its new labor force report, which revised the country's unemployment of 33.3% in fourth quarter of last year, downwards to 5.3%. That figure for the first quarter for this year was 4.1%. Now, according to the NBS, the new methodology used for the jobs data were adopted from the International Labour Organization. Okay, so let's drill into the new labor report now with Paul Alaje, who is a senior economist at SPM Professionals from our Abuja studios. Thanks for coming on the show tonight. We appreciate it. Let's get moving very quickly. Give me some background to this latest jobs report by the NBS. What do we know before this data was released today?
Well, what we have before the data was released is that the National Bureau of Statistics has changed the parameter, maybe I should say the methodology for measuring unemployment. Let me also build a background that before 2014, it used to be those who have up to 40 hours a week. That is, if you have 8 hours a job, which we usually call 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, that is when you can be said to be employed. That's changed in 2014 under the former Assistant General to 20 hours a week. That is, if you have work to do or you are engaged for 4 hours for a day or 20 hours a week, you are said to be employed. What changed? The major, even though there are so many other things, but the major change, difference in this report is that the Bureau of Statistics is now following the guideline of ILO that anyone who gets engaged for 1 hour, not a day, but a week, is now said to be employed. That is, if you're a surgeon and you can work for 1 hour, you are said to be employed. If you are quote and unquote what we call in this part of the country, Merua, that is people that push water from home to home. If you can do that for 1 week, or you're a shoe cobbler, if you do it for 1 week, then you are said to be engaged. So what you earn is another conversation entirely. What the Bureau of Statistics try to measure is those who are now engaged by having their hands on the job, whether the productivity makes sense, whether they earn sufficiently, whether they are paid as at when due or they are not paid at all. Those were not the target. The target is those who have something doing with their hands. And according to them, 1 hour a week is the calculation. Before now, Bureau of Statistics have actually not captured effectively those underemployed for employment, those that have 1 to 19 hours. But now we have this in the numbers. And the number, of course, like you rightly mentioned, that we now have 4.1% as unemployment figure based on this new adjustment, unlike what we had before in Q4 2020, where the number was 33.3%.
So you're breaking down the new figures for me, the methodologies as per 1 hour per week, the working age, about 15 years to whether it's infinity. This methodology says from the International Labour Organization. Are you comfortable with the new methodology? What does it really mean for us as a developing economy? Paul?
Well, I can tell you that saying that people that work between 15 years and above, that is anyone within 70, 80, 90, 100, once the person can be employed, it will still be part of the labor force. Once the person can get a job, is willing and able to work, it will be part of it. So if he's employed, then he's employed. If he's not, then it will be part of the unemployment figure. So this is really a very dicey situation. And I can tell you, it will really be very hard to convince people. And I tell you, look at Niger Republic. Niger Republic unemployment figure is lower than Nigeria. When the military junta took over the country, one of the things they complained, one of the reasons they gave, and we saw the chair that followed it on social media, was that unemployment figure is high in the country, that poverty is high in the country, and then it is really tough. The economies of the country is really very tough. But when you look at the Bureau of Statistics of Niger Republic, what they have on paper is completely different. Another thing is this. in economics, and you can speak to any professor of economics, in economics, once your unemployment is between 3 to 5%, you are said to have natural unemployment or to have comfortable unemployment, or you don't have unemployment at all. The question on the mind of many Nigerians and experts is, with the situation we are in Nigeria, saying we have 4.1% unemployment, can we truly say all is well? If the answer is no, does that mean that we are just following the directive or the guideline or procedure of the ILO? The point is, even the SG, Assistant General, mentioned that this number that we now have at 4.1 is not as a result of any policy or any intervention of government. It is not because private sector has created more jobs or because public sector has employed people. I have seen a difference in unemployment, not directly because job market, there is now a lot of companies, industries, factories, farms, there is a lot of production happening in Nigeria. It is none of those reasons. The main reason is because we have changed the methodology. Instead of 15 to 65, it's now 15 and above. That is, if you live to 200 years and you're employed, you will still be part of the labor force. 2, we have also adjusted that when you work beyond 59 minutes, in a 59 minutes in a week, not a day, in a week, you are also said to be part of the labor force, and you are part, if you are working, you are said to be employed. So these were not in the reality of before. So the question is, how do we now know? You know, because of complexity of what economics taught in the real sense of it, and what ILO, and by extension, what MBS is stating right now.
Okay, so does the new job methodology represent what the government of Nigeria is pursuing in terms of unemployment for Nigeria? Like you said, it's not due to any policy action, so it doesn't really mean that we really did any hard work on the ground. What the latest jobs-led data just mean that the NBS, in their own wisdom, in its wisdom, just decided to rejig the portfolio of unemployment for Nigeria. Is not really that we've really done anything that we say we've really created jobs. So we need to create jobs, but then what is unemployment on the other hand if there's a bit of disparity or whatever between what the data says or the methodology by the Statistics Office and what the government wants to see, and unemployment that is staring all of us in the face on the other hand? Try to balance this for me, my friend.
Well, if I look at the figure, I can tell you that if you are looking at the model that was applicable by 2014, which was those that have up to 40 hours job plus, according to the Bureau of Statistics, this new report captured that the employment number will be 51.2%. By implication, those that don't get up to that will be around 49.8%. Now, if you look at what we use as at the last report before this, those that have employment up to 20 hours a week, what we have here is 71.2%. What that will mean is that approximately 28.8% is what we should be discussing at those that are unemployed. But when you expand this further and you had a few of other things that has not been included, then you see that the number has increased beyond what we have as the National Bureau of Statistics has released. But you see, a minister was there and he said, maybe, and quoting the minister, we have even beaten ourselves harder than necessary. If I can rephrase the statement of the minister, this is one of the danger we have, because this number we make us assume that all is well. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Statistics reiterated, the SG reiterated over and over and over again that they are by no means saying unemployment figure reduced. That is not the intention of the National Bureau of Statistics. And I watched the SG because I was present when the presentation was made over and over again, and that we have used this method because this is what the international community is using. This is what most West African countries are using, and we think we should also align ourselves with what they are doing. But in terms of if there is still unemployment, the figure and the fact is there for people to check. If this relates to how much people earn. Well, that is not what they investigated. And that, of course, he also mentioned the report they shared. You know, I think first quarter or last quarter last year or first quarter this year, about poverty, where they revealed 133 million people are living a multidimensional poverty. So what this has measured to us, you know, before now, if you want to check the health of a nation in terms of economic performance, there are several parameters, but there are two quick ones because of their implication on misery index and their implication on stagflation. So this will include unemployment figures and inflation. But now that unemployment is reducing against the culture, our peculiar culture in Africa, to 1 hour a week, it's going to be really very tough to say that the economy is truly healthy when you and I know that we have quite a lot to be worried about. But, you know, just to speak to why government should not be so comfortable and need to work, the true employment that we have seen in the West and some other parts of the world are employment that are driven when you talk about agriculture. And this report have clearly captured this, those that own their businesses and those that are engaged in farming activity. Is how do we now promote all of this into massive production, to plantation of some sort, into structured farming, structured farming around our country. Number two, how do we focus on manufacturers? Because when we say people are employed and factories are closing down, it's a mismatch from what data is saying and what is real on the street. So again, how do we build solid service sector, which of course is a more robust financial sector, insurance sector, and so on and so forth? How do we build these three so that when people are employed, according to this 1 hour, we can say that very less than 0.1% of our population is between 1 hour to 19 hours. Significant proportion of our population have migrated to 20 or 40 hours a week, which I think is what we should be looking at going forward.
Do you think, as an economist, do you think these latest jobless data, just to sum up this interview, I'm sure the jury is still out there about this across your colleagues who are economists and others, in terms of whether this report gives some comfort to the new administration as to what needs to be done on the unemployment level in Nigeria, what type of jobs, the kind of jobs, the level of jobs that should be created. Do you think this MBS report sort of clear up the place or model up the whole place for the government in terms of what is the real level of unemployment in Nigeria and what needs to be done?
Well, I think that if the government is looking at the headline, government will just fold hands and relax and say, well, unemployment is single digits, natural unemployment is 3 to 5% for some countries, other countries 4 to 6%. If we are at 4.1%, we are very comfortable. When you say government, the country needs to get more jobs. The question will be for who? At 4.1. So government, there is that temptation for government to be very relaxed, and that will be misleading. That will be very confusing in a country that factories are not functional, in a country that power supply is epileptic, in a country that farmers are not able to go to farm because of insurgents and because of logistic reasons. It will be very, very distorted. And this is what I've always said to members of international community that are advising Nigeria to take policies. For instance, what we have seen, I beg your pardon, in under devaluation of currency, which of course we have recently seen and caused some distortion in PMS prices upon removal of subsidy. Now we are seeing this again coming from an international community, is that African realities is completely different from what is obtainable in the rest of, to some parts of the world. This is because when we release those numbers in those places, people go out to have an employment card. They go out to look for work permit. That does not hold here. And if you see, 90% or so of those in the informal sector are engaged. So the complexity here is so much. And if you want to get to it, yes, there are a number of very interesting things that this report has revealed, which government can look at, which government can work at. There seems to be higher unemployment for women than their male counterparts. Government could look at how to support women, especially to get jobs. But for the Bureau of Statistics, of course, to release this report in order to align with the guideline of ILO And of course, for Nigeria to be in compliance with what some of the West African countries are doing. By the way, the average for West Africa is at 4.7 as at, I think, last quarter of 2022. So this is most African country saying all is well. But I tell you that it is far from being true if you look at it just from the headline, because the occupation of Ukraine, we saw what happened to many West African countries. PMS prices jumped. We saw inflation in most West African countries skyrocketed. So if the population is truly engaged, if the population is true, because how do you get engaged if not because you want to be productive? So when you say that you're employed, it infers that you are going to be productive. So the summary of all of this is similar to what Nigeria did when we rebased our economy. This is employment rebasing of some sort. Remember, when Nigeria suddenly became the largest economy in the whole continent, it was not because we produced more. It was because we added some things that we feel have not been captured. Exactly the same thing. This is employment rebasing number. So, and it is not based on income. It is not based on productivity. It is simply based on time.
We thank you so much for your insights and latest labor force report. Thank you so much. Paul Alaje, do have a great evening. Paul Alaje, senior economist at SPM Professionals. So thank you very much for touching base with us.